Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is another Cultures of the Americas video, and I had requested that I do a video on the Gullah-Geeche people of the Carolinas. The Gullah are African Americans who live in the Low Country region of the U.S. states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and both the coastal plains and the Sea Islands. The Gullah-Geeche people are descendants of Africans who were enslaved on the rice, indigo, and Sea Island cotton plantations of the lower Atlantic coast. Many came from the rice-growing region of West Africa. The nature of their enslavements on isolated islands and coastal plantations created a unique culture with deep African retentions that are clearly visible in the Gullah-Geeche's people distinctive arts, crafts, food, music, and language. The Gullah people are known for preserving more of their African linguistic and cultural heritage than any other African American community in the United States. The Gullah people and their language are also called Geechee. Gullah is a term that was originally used to designate the Creole dialect of English spoken by Gullah and Geechee people. Over time, its speakers have used this term to formally refer to their Creole language and distinctive ethnic identity as a people. The Gullah-Geeche language began as a simplified form of communication among people who spoke many different languages, including the European slave traders, slave owners, and diverse African ethnic groups. The vocabulary and grammatical roots come from African and European languages. It is the only distinctly African Creole language in the United States and has influenced traditional Southern vocabulary and speech patterns. Usually referred to as Sea Island Creole, the Gullah language is related to Jamaican Creole, Barbadian dialect, Bahamian dialect, and very much like the Creole language of Sierra Leone in West Africa.
On a quiet chain of islands off the South Carolina and Georgia coast is an almost forgotten community called the Gullah or Geechee people. More than anywhere else in America, they've held on to traditions their ancestors brought from Africa. They've stayed on the isolated former plantation land where those ancestors were once enslaved and developed a culture and language known as Gullah.
The ancestors of the Gullah-Geeche people brought to this country a rich heritage of African cultural traditions in art, food, and music. Today's Gullah-Geeche arts and crafts are the results of products designed by their ancestors out of necessity for daily living, such as making cast nets for fishing, basket weaving for agriculture, and textile arts for clothing and warmth.
So we feel like we're insulated and kind of kept warmed and keep our culture alive away from the mainland culture. So sure, if you went just across a couple bridges and you ended up on the mainland, you'll hear people speaking like this. And then you come across onto these 100 Yeti, people are cracking teeth like this all day long and things like that. And they say, huh?
Marquetta Goodwine, also known as Queen Quet, still lives on the land where her great-great-grandfather was enslaved 5 generations ago.
We have okra, we plant peanuts, cantaloupe, watermelon, the same things that my great-great-grandfather planted here. And he was the person that actually obtained this land in 1862. So my family has continuously owned it legally since then, but he was actually enslaved here.
Hundreds of plantations ran down the South Carolina and Georgia coast in an area known as the Sea Islands. After the Civil War broke out, the islands were abandoned by the plantation owners, and thousands of people were eventually able to buy the land they were once enslaved on.
Deeply rooted in music traditions brought to the Americas by enslaved Africans, their music evolved out of the conditions of slavery that characterized their lives. The influence and evolution of musical forms that arose out of Gullah music can be heard in many musical genres, such as spirituals and gospel music, ragtime, rhythm and blues, soul, hip-hop, and jazz music.
Away, and they had to have a focal point of where to run. And we know the story about Harriet Tubman, and we know the story about many others, but it's so significant that when they were running away, they would have to watch and see what direction. They didn't have a compass, anything like that. So they had to watch a focal point, and that was watch that star and see how it run. When the star goes down in Western Hill, watch that star, see how it run. Oh, member, watch that star, see how it run. Oh, member, watch that star, see how it run. When the star goes down in the Western Hill, watch that star, see how it run. Sister Magda, watch that star, see how it run. Oh, Magda, watch that star, see how it run. When the sun goes down in the Western Hill, watch that star, see how it run. Now, baby, watch that star, see how it run. Now, baby, watch that star, see how it run. When the sun goes down in the Western Hill, watch that star, see how it run.
When it comes to Gullah cuisine, rice is a staple food in Gullah communities and continues to be cultivated in abundance in the coastal regions of Georgia and South Carolina. Rice is also an important food in West African cultures. As descendants of enslaved Africans, the Gullah continued the traditional food and food techniques of their ancestors, demonstrating another link to traditional African cultures. Rice is a core commodity of the Gullah food system. A meal was not considered complete without rice.
This is how we Gullah people do it in the Gullah style. The Gullah people migrated from Sierra Leone. And so this is what it's all about today. We call it a little gathering, a family gathering.
Now the Gullah-Geeche heritage, which came from our ancestors, the Africans who came over, who were rice growers from the west coast of Africa, they were the ones who were responsible for actually the economic development of the United States of America. They actually started growing rice just for survival, and the British discovered that they knew how to grow rice, which immediately gave a big economic boom to the beginning of the United States. And actually, South Carolina was the wealthiest state in the United States due to rice production.
Well, this Gullah style of cooking was handed down from 3 generations. My grandmother, my mother, and my aunt. I mean, that's how I became a great cook, because I think I'm a great cook. I'm an author of a cookbook. The name of the cookbook is Gullah Cuisine by Land and by Sea. With the collars, I like to use a little smoked meat. That's the Gullah style. We prepare collars with smoked neck bone and ham hock, and sometimes they throw a little pigtails in it. This is the sauce going on the chicken. I should have been out here supervising. We're also going to have fresh whiting fish with heads on. This is the fish I grew up on, which we got it from the river, which is not too far from this little area.
Religion and spirituality have a sustaining role in Gullah family and community life. Enslaved Africans were exposed to Christian religious practices in a number of ways and incorporated elements that were meaningful to them into their African-rooted system of beliefs. These values included belief in a God, community above individuality, respect for elders, kinship bonds and ancestors, respect for nature, and honoring the continuity of life in the afterlife. Low-country plantations frequently had a praise house or a small structure where slaves could meet for religious services. Now, focusing on some of these specific African influences present in Gullah culture, the Gullah word goober for peanut derives from the Kikongo and Kimbundu word guba. Gullah rice dishes called red rice and okra soup are similar to West African jollof rice and okra soup. Jollof rice is a traditional style of rice preparation brought by the Wolof people of West Africa. The Gullah version of gumbo has its roots in African cooking. Gumbo is derived from a word in the Umbundu language of Angola, meaning okra, one of the dish's main ingredients. Gullah beliefs about hags and haunts are similar to African beliefs about malevolent ancestors, witches, and devils, or forest spirits. Gullah root doctors protect their clients against dangerous spiritual forces by using ritual objects similar to those employed by African traditional healers. And lastly, Gullah herbal medicines are similar to traditional African remedies. Alright guys, that was it for this video on the Gullah-Geeche people. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!